Welcome to the Be the Solution podcast. Hi, this is Maria Quattrone, and today I am with Mary Murphy from Murphy Group in South Jersey. Mary, welcome to Be the Solution podcast.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Awesome. It's great to be with you today, Mary. I want to jump right in it with you. So, how did you get into the industry?
So I was a teacher and I was not making a lot of money. I was working in Philly and I live in Jersey and working in South Philadelphia. And I had my second child and they were both babies. So by the time I put two kids in daycare, I drove over the bridge every day and fixed my car that kept getting hit. Like I wasn't making any money. It just didn't make sense. So really that's how I got into real estate. It was like, what can I do to supplement this income and have more of a flexible schedule? And I was so miserable. So that's how I really got into it. I picked houses because they were the most expensive thing. And I thought that I would just do it part time, although it was never part time for me. Um, and I never went back. I thought when my kids got into the school age, I'd maybe go back to teaching. And I still do. I teach a lot in our industry, but I would never go back to school.
So, what year was that?
So my last year of teaching was 2014, and I got licensed in 2015.
Okay, so we're 7 years in the business,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure you started off and you were like just selling like 100 houses a year, right?
Yes, 100, like first week. No, actually, so when I started, it was funny. I was going to do it part-time, and then my husband's job like restructured and they removed his position. So he got laid off right as I finished real estate school. And he decided to open his own insurance company because he was in insurance. So a job that was going to be part-time, all of a sudden I had to make money at. And so I had like a year to figure it out, or I was going to probably have to go get a real job. We call it a real job. This is a real job, but so my first year I did sell a lot though. I joined a team after being 6 weeks licensed. I mean, I was the first one in the office every single morning. I wanted to meet all the top producers. They couldn't go to the bathroom without me stopping them to ask a question. And so 6 weeks licensed, I chose a team and I sold 37 houses my first year. So 2015, I got licensed, and that year I sold 7 million.
That's awesome. Amazing. Great work. So it's interesting. So you were in the business first. So Brian was in insurance. He had an insurance agency. So
Yes.
what happened there?
So to make it quick, I joined a team. I was on the first team for a couple of years, went to another team, finally realized I wanted to build my own. And that was 2019. So the middle of 2018, I start building the Murphy Group, and Brian's not with me. And I had been on teams. I'd always been in coaching. I've never not been coached, always going to seminars. And that's how we know each other. We have the same coach, right? So like,
That's right.
I've always done that. That's where I always invested my time and money. But in 2019, even with all that, I was making a big old mess trying to build a team. And I'll never forget the conversation with Brian, because Brian has his MBA in accounting and finance. Like he's the opposite. So we talk about, if you haven't read the book Rocket Fuel, anyone listening, you should. But he's your absolute integrator, and I'm a visionary. And when we visionaries try and build something, we kind of make a big mess, which is what was happening. And we were in Jamaica, and I said, you know how when I say to you, like, hey, let's do something, like, let's go away, let's go to Disney. I just say that, and then you put all the pieces together, and I don't even know what airline we're flying on. Like, can you just do that in my business? And we left Jamaica Monday morning. He put his 2 weeks in, and he joined me over as my director of ops. And that was in like the end of 2019. And it's been such a game changer because there's no one you can trust more. Like this brand is his brand, right? It's his name on it. So it's very different than anyone you could hire. Of course, we're husband and wife. So I mean, I'll fight with him differently than I probably would an employee, but it's that changed the trajectory of my career. I was selling 70 homes a year myself, but I couldn't break through it until.
Well, we know what growth requires, right?
Right.
People.
Mm-hmm.
Processes and systems around that so people can work within them and grow them, right?
Right.
So it's interesting because you got into the business. You were like, let me see if I could do this part-time with the kids. And you're like, oh, wait, This is not a part-time business.
It's not.
It's
And
not
I
a
fell in love
part-time.
with it. I didn't know that I was going to, right? So when I decided to do it, it was really just like, it was to get out of what I was doing that wasn't making sense. But it was really weird. And I'm sure you probably feel this way. Like, I didn't realize what I had gotten into, or the people, like my people are here in this industry. These builders, people who, you know, pulled it up from their bootstraps, and that's how they made it. And that's all, they're the people that I love to be around. And that's what I feel like I am lucky to be surrounded by here in this industry, and with the circles I choose to be a part of. I know every circle isn't that way. Um, so I fell in
No,
love. So I don't think I could have done it part-time anyway. I think I would have been finding a nanny or something very shortly.
well, one of the things that we talk about in a lot of, because we bring new people into the industry, is they want to be part-time. And one of our agents, she will talk with them and say the reason why she wasn't part-time, she wanted to give it, 150%, that she did everything that she could to make it. And so if you're not giving yourself the chance to even make it, because I don't know many part timers that have made it unless you really truly just want a little bit of income on the side. But if you really, really want to make it work and make what we call, a real living, then it's a pretty big time commitment, especially in the beginning.
Oh my
You
gosh, I think
still,
I worked 100 hours a week. I mean, my babies were, as soon as they went to bed, I was back on my phone. I was like, I worked so much. And I think people do it part-time because they don't believe in themselves, and they don't, their work, it's a security thing, and for us, sometimes I know people who they're keeping like a $40,000 a year job full time and doing this part-time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you just put the hours into this that you put into that $40,000 a year job, do you have any idea what that would look like? And it's getting over that fear. Like, I literally had until June, right? So I got licensed in January. No, I had that year. I had to start making it that year. I was gonna have to find another job by probably the following fall. And we had savings, we had some money, and we were bleeding through it. I sold 4 houses my first 6 months, and I sold 33 my second 6 months. So the first
now
six
tell
months, I didn't
me
make any money.
now tell me what changed. What happened?
So I think part of it is we do have to understand that ramp up time. And, you have to build the pipeline. It's not often that we're going to talk to someone. And then, even if we talk to someone today and they buy a house today, we're still not getting paid for 45 to 60 days, right? So I think a lot of it was just the ramp up, doing the activities, following up, all of that. And it was drive. I can remember saying to myself all the time, like, as long as you know more than them, you're the expert. As long as you know where to find the answer, you're educated. Like that, I would say those things to myself all the time because I was so nervous as this new agent. I'm like, I'm selling all these houses and I have no idea what I'm doing. Because that's what I would feel like every day. So I had all these affirmations that I would say all the time in the car. And they still get me through it. I still do affirmations. I'm still usually like feeling insecure in whatever room I'm putting myself in. Because the second I feel like I'm reaching the top, I'm switching the room.
That's right.
So
Always growing, always learning, right? That's all part of it, for sure. Affirmations is something. It's on day one in our training is what we teach, affirmations. I still have affirmations. I actually just redid the affirmations. I wasn't using them for a bit, but this past couple training classes, I said, okay, I wrote mine, and I stood up because in our company, when you're speaking, you stand up to present. So I stood up and presented mine, and it works, right?
it just changes your mindset. And my kids do them too.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
it's so awesome when my kids are 8 and 10 now, but when they've been doing them since they were 2 and 4, before school, all of that. So they still do them. So all the time they're like, Mommy, I think I did good on my test. I said my affirmations, I studied, so I'm prepared, my mindset was right. And so I think I did well.
That's awesome,
So
Mary.
it really is. It's good to see them do it.
It really is. That's special.
Hmm.
They'll look back on that and say, that
I hope
really
they
helped
take
me.
it with them, right?
Yeah,
And life never really gets that easy. So we'll still need it.
absolutely. So I want to switch gears a little bit
Mhm.
because you were able to come into the industry out of not in a sales background. You're a teacher, and you were able to do quite a good amount of business in a short amount of time. So one of the things that you specialize, two of the things you specialize in are for sale by owners and expired listings. So dive a little bit deeper into that. And how did you get started calling those people?
So my first year, I was an agent on a team. So I was a buyer's agent. It was all buyer leads, open houses, referrals from the team. It was all buyers. So every single sale was buyers for my first 2 years. And what happened was I was actually kind of forced into the expireds and the for sale by owners because the team that I was on changed. Partners split up. All of a sudden, the buyer leads weren't really there anymore. There weren't as many listings for open houses. And I had to figure out how to really create my own business. Not that that wasn't, listen, buyer leads and converting them is a skill in itself, right? Converting open house leads, following up, doing all that is a strong skill. But all of a sudden, when that source of business anymore, I realized I had to figure out how to create a source of business that will always feed me. Right. So I had taken a lot of classes. I had done a lot of trainings and I always heard about listings and taking listings and prospecting. And I did follow that prospecting schedule even when I was working buyers. The mornings were for prospecting, the afternoons were for showings and for home inspections and for settlements. So I didn't even think homes were open in the morning. Like in my brain, you could not show a house at 10 a.m. Like it was so weird to me that people did it because I was trained from the very beginning that the morning is for prospecting. And I still feel that way. I still won't take a listing appointment in the morning usually. So getting to where I got into the for sale by owners and expireds, it was expireds first. And in fact, expireds are still my favorite. So it was expireds first. I knew you had to be on the phone by 8 a.m., which is so early to call someone. People are always like, oh my God, 8 a.m. Like I would kill you if you called me at 8. Well, if I called you later than 8, you wouldn't answer the phone because by 9, 40 agents had called these brand new expireds. So 8 a.m. on the phone calling expireds. And I realized I am trained, but I was blessed with just being able to communicate and have that. I was able to connect with them. So they were angry. And I think it's just that empathy that I could find with both expireds and FISBOs is that, well, yes, they're angry. They had their home on the market for 6 months. They probably didn't hear from their agent. Then it didn't sell. Now it's 8 a.m. and they have their phone ringing off the hook with agents who didn't help sell their house before calling them to list. They didn't move to Florida like they wanted to, or they didn't upsize. So I understood that they were going to answer and be angry. And what I needed to find out is, did their dreams change? Could I still help them get to that goal that they wanted? And if I could, would they be interested in sitting down with me for 20 minutes? And that was really what I was trying to focus on with the expireds. And I got hung up on a lot, right? They were angry, they were unmotivated. But I found the good one, it's a numbers game, right? And it's mastering that first 5 seconds. Your tone. We talked about this a lot. We're in a training together with Bill Pipes, and right, you're doing it too, right? So
Yes, we are.
yesterday they talked about the tonality, and I had to learn really fast the tonality and that rate of speech that they talked about. I naturally talk so fast. And you'll catch me doing it, but I'll slow myself down. If you were to put me in a room with my sisters, we'd be speaking another language. We talk so fast. Like that's just the way we talk in our family. Um, so anyway, the buyer leads dried up. I realized I had to do something else. I had seen some of the agents in the office come in, they get on the phone, they call expireds and FISBOs. And so it was expireds first. And my first listing was an expired listing that hung up on me. So she answered the phone. She's like, I already have appointments. I don't have time for this. She hung up. I was like, and this is something I say to my team all the time is the worst thing they can say is no again. Right? She already said no. Just say no again. What's the difference? So I picked up the phone again. I called her back and said, hey, I heard you were scheduling appointments. I just want to be on that list. Build a little rapport. And she let me schedule an appointment. I remember that appointment, waiting in line. There was an agent in there already. I had to wait outside. I almost left. Then I went in and I met with her. And when I left, there was an agent waiting. But I remember when I met with her, she was a widower. Her husband had died. She was selling her home and she was in Jersey and she was moving to PA. And she told me all about it. And she cried. And afterwards, she was like, I don't even know why I'm telling you all this. And I realized that was really what my strength was building that connection. And we didn't need to talk about her house at first. She told me why she was moving and how every room she looked in, she saw her husband and she couldn't live there anymore. And she wanted to be closer to family. And it was so powerful. I still love her. She still doesn't know she was my first ever listing. And so then all of a sudden the expireds dried up. So expireds were my thing. I knew how to get them. I was crushing it. I was barely
how did you get them? What kind of tools did you use?
So at the time I was using Vulcan 7. So we're talking, this is 2017. So Vulcan 7 and I had a dialer. So 8 a.m. I would come in, we had the Vulcan 7 dialer. I think it was only a 1-line dialer. Mojo has a 3-line, which I did move over to. But at the time I was using a Vulcan 7, a 1-line dialer, and getting in there at 8 o'clock and staying on the phone until 11, right? From 8 to 11, I was just calling those expireds, and they were the only ones I was calling. And I used Vulcan 7 as my CRM system too. I didn't have a CRM system, so I would just use Vulcan to put my notes in and to schedule my next follow-up call. And then, so every morning I would go in, call the new ones first, go through my follow-ups, and then maybe call some old ones and go to the buyer leads. So that was what
how many calls were you making a day?
So, I guess it depends. I used to have a sheet, and the sheet I had to make 20 contacts a day. So my goal was 20 new contacts every day. And I had a sheet with all the numbers on it that would go all the way to 100. And I would usually not hit 100. I would usually stop at 20. But then on the bottom, I also had other things that I needed to do for the day. So journal, affirmations. I wanted to eat less than 50 carbs a day, exercise, reading a mindset book. They were all on the bottom of the sheet too. So checking off the numbers as I talk to someone. Every no gets you closer to a yes. So I had read that book, Go for No. So the no's, I'm like, all right, no. And then I would get a yes, right? And so dials, I guess it really depended because it depended how long it would take me to get contacts. If there was a lot of expireds, I would be able to do it faster. And if there weren't, and I was calling old ones and buyer leads, then it would take me a little longer, a little more dials, but anywhere from usually a couple hundred dials every day. So a couple hundred dials every day.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So you were taking how many expired listings a week, would you say?
I probably was taking like 4 or 5 a month.
4 or 5 a month?
So maybe yeah.
And that was back are you still doing that now, or?
So personally, I'm not. So that was 2017, and there were still expireds. It wasn't long after that the expireds had pretty much dried up, and then the only expireds that were left were either unmotivated sellers or something was wrong with the house. Our market was just too good. So they weren't really expiring as much anymore. And also there was just so many agents calling them that my contact ratio was really low. And I'm a driver personality. Like, I don't have a lot of patience to sit on a deadline. And that was what was starting to happen to me. I also didn't really want to call people at 8 a.m. anymore. I wanted to adjust my schedule. So that's where I started to get into the for sale by owners. And I was petrified. I did not want to call for sale by owners, but I wasn't getting the business from the expireds anymore. They weren't there. And so I felt that I was like at kind of a crossroads where I had to add something else. And that's where the FSBOs came in. I would say I started doing FSBOs in probably like the middle of 2017 through, I called them all the way through 2021. And now I don't do it personally anymore, but I'm still teaching my agents to do that.
So what's the secret sauce in the FSBOs? How do you get them the
I think
list?
almost everything is mindset and tonality and skill. But I think the reason why agents don't want to call for sale by owners is because of their mindset around them, right? They hate realtors, they're cheap, they refuse to pay commission, um, they're difficult to work with. And I think I had to think of them the way I thought of the expireds. Like everyone thinks expireds are angry and they're mean. And like I had to we always have to get into the head of why their thinking is that way. So for sale by owners, yes, they want to make the most money. They want to net the most money. I haven't met a seller that doesn't. In a rare instance, does a seller care about anything more than they care about netting the most money? So they wanted to net the most money. They likely had a bad experience with a realtor in the past, or they, for whatever reason, have a bad impression on what we do, and they lump us all together. And also, these are people who are raising their hand that they want to move. And I truly believed that I would be able to make that a better process for them. I could make
Why?
them more money. Why did I believe that?
No, well, how did you convince them of it?
So the first part was me convincing myself. And then the second part was me talking to them and just asking the right questions, asking them why they decided to do it on their own. And if their strategy didn't work, would they be open to hearing another one? Asking them if they were willing to sit down with me for 20 minutes. And worst case scenario, I give you some tips on how to do it better yourself. Best case, you decide that I'm better at my job because I do it every day and that you would like to hire me. And a lot of times they would take that meeting. And during that meeting, when I talked to them about the home inspection and ordering title and paying a buyer's agent to negotiate against them, first at the sale, next at the home inspection, during the closing date, having to get the certificate of occupancy. I mean, when you act, so with for sale by owners, it's always urgency, curiosity, and doubt. So if I can get them those three things on a call, the sense of urgency, why now is important, and why if you wait, you will lose out if you wait, right? So the sense of urgency, curiosity. What is this girl that's blabbering on the phone going to do differently? Why is she in the top 1%? Like why, how can she make me more money? And then doubt, the doubt is that they can do it on their own, or in this market, will they lose out if they do it on their own? Because now the message is you're absolutely going to sell it on your own. I believe that you can. What I also know is that we're netting our sellers anywhere from 5 to 10% over asking price. Some of our sellers are getting $100,000 over. If I can get you $100,000 over, would you be willing to work with me and pay a commission? Right. And I would make little jokes like you'd pay me 10% if I could get you $1 million for that home. Right. So if I can sit down with you and show you how I'm actually going to net you more money while making your life easier, making the transaction smoother, would you be willing to sit down with me and talk to me for 20 minutes? So that's really just the message. The message was, if I could solve your problem better than you, would you be willing to just hear me out? Or are you willing just to have a plan B if plan A doesn't work? So what it is it's very non-salesy. I have no attachment to the choice that you make. And I want them to feel that. So the curiosity, urgency, doubt,
not being attached to the outcome.
Not attached. Here's the thing though. I wouldn't just go meet with anybody. And I still won't. I still want to make sure that I'm sitting down with a seller that has motivation. The motivation is the most important thing to me. Because I know if you're truly motivated, if you really need to get out of here, you have a job transfer, you have a house that you already built in Virginia, like you're so motivated that when I sit down with you, I'm going to be able to get over the other hurdles. Now, if I talk to you and you're like, and I ask you why you're selling, and it has to do with the market is so good. I just wanted to see what happened. Awesome. And where are you going to move? Maybe Texas, maybe Florida, maybe China. I'm like, all right, this guy he has no idea where he's going next. Okay, well, if I can get you what you're asking or even more, are you able to move out in the next 30 to 60 days? Well, no, my kid's going to graduate. Like they start telling you all this stuff and you're like, dude, you're not going to sell. So like when you have that conversation, then that would be one that I wouldn't want to give my time to. So you have to it's all peeling back that onion though. If you ask questions, if you ask enough questions, right questions, you're truly curious and you ask them in the right tone, they'll tell you everything. They'll cry to you about their husband that passed away. They'll tell you about their struggles with their marriage. They'll tell you about their financial issues. They'll tell you why they'll really tell you why, because they're just looking for someone who cares and is interested. And that's who I've become to them. And that's who I genuinely am. I truly do want to help them if they're in a bad situation to get out of it. Or if I can truly get them $100,000 and they can get out of that 3-bedroom into a 4-bedroom because they have 4 kids, like I know that I can do that. So I guess I could go over script. I did. So I also role played. So I was on the phone at 8 a.m. I forgot to tell you that at 7:30 I was role playing every day, 5 days a week.
Would you role play with somebody in another organization or somebody in your company?
A lot of times it was company. So it was like coach. I was picky about my role play partners too. So I would always take like a 30-day role play partner. And then if I liked them, I would ask if they wanted to extend, because it's important if I'm going to practice my skills, right? If I'm Michael Jordan, I don't want to practice basketball with, a 10-year-old. I want to practice with other people who are going to push me. So, I would ask on Facebook sites, or like I was with Keller Williams at the time. So I would take Bold. I would ask so a lot of times they were not local agents. And that was also strategic. I built a very strong agent referral network. I still have it. And a lot of that had to do with role play and going to all those events. So different companies, usually not different companies, usually always KW at that time, because I was Keller Williams, and everything I went to at that time was all Keller Williams. I didn't realize there was like actually a whole nother world of successful people that weren't with that company until I was like licensed, almost 5 years. Then I saw people like you. I'm like, wait, she's crushing it over there at Remax. I thought everybody that was doing well was like, was blind,
Doesn't matter what organization you're with. It's all about doing the work, Mary. All about doing the work.
It is. You always say that work works, right? And I always say something similar, which is everything works as long as you work it, right? FSBOs, expires, door knocking, client events, open houses, mailers, Zillow, all of it works. And all of it doesn't work if you don't actually do the work, right? Like it just doesn't matter.
So sources of business, expires, and FSBOs always will be. We still have expireds. We recently restarted an expire campaign a few months, maybe a couple months ago. There's still expires regardless of the market, because all different reasons why.
There are, and that was a mistake that I probably moved away from them. Here's the mistake that I will say that I made, and if you're listening, that I would hope that you wouldn't make. I always, in the beginning, pigeonholed myself, right? You should always have at least 3 sources of business. And even though I did all this training, did all this coaching, sometimes you just don't hear it. And I think when you're a strong driver that like me, you're just like, whatever works the fastest. That's what I'll do. So with the expires, the FSBOs, and the buyer leads, where I really made a mistake in the beginning was I didn't continuously follow up with them. I was very transactional. So I talk about how I would connect with them and how I cared about them, and I did. And then when the transaction closed, I didn't appropriately follow up with them after that. And I had to learn that, I learned that better now. But in the beginning, it was like, do you want to buy a house today? No? Okay, bye. Throw them in the trash. Expired. Do you want to list with me right now? No? All right, I'll put you on a drip. Or like I put them in a follow-up. But it was always one source. So you get to have 3 sources. One has to be database and past clients. You can pick the other 2. You don't get to pick that one. Or you're always going to be on a transaction treadmill. You're always going to be on a treadmill. You can't build it. So it took me, I've only been licensed 7 years, so I'm learning it as fast as I can. But
so what systems do you use for prospecting for expires and for FSBOs?
So we have Mojo and RedX right now. I would increase it. I probably would use Vulcan 7 if I had people who were as committed to prospecting the way that I was. But FSBOs, to be honest with you, Maria, my favorite way to find FSBOs even then was through Zillow. So when I moved over to FSBOs, I also added a CRM system called Chime. I don't use Chime now, but I used Chime for a long time. So then I actually still had Mojo for expireds and for circle prospecting if I wanted to circle prospect like a listing, but I used Zillow. It's free. I went on Zillow, and all you have to do if you want to find FSBOs on Zillow is you go in there, you search an area, you can do a little map, and you go in like a buyer, and then you can go over to the for sale section, you click that, and unclick everything except for buy owner. And if you unclick everything and you just have buy owner, then you'll get all the for sale by owners in the area that you picked because they're almost all going to be on Zillow. So that was how I just used one screen would be Zillow. The other screen, so I had two monitors and the other one would be Chime. And as I was talking to the person that I was just dialing from my phone, I had a headset, but I was just dialing them from my phone and then I was adding them to my CRM. So that was the way I did FSBOs.
And that's free.
It's 100%. Like, I mean, besides I did use Chime, but you wouldn't have to. You could use Google Calendar. Like you literally, if you have no money, so if you are a brand new agent or you're an agent that is in a slump or something like that and you have no money, you have time. If you have no money, it's because you're not closing things. So that means you have a lot of time. So go on Zillow, call FSBOs, and if you get it cheap, get Lion Desk. Cheap CRM. I think it's like $30 a month. Or your company might provide them. That's all you need. You need literally nothing else. And you can make $100,000 this year.
That and your phone.
You need a computer and a phone. That's it. You don't need all that fancy stuff. I have all that fancy stuff now. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth all the money that I pay for all the stuff that I have. Because it's not how I got here.
Back to the basics. Mm-hmm. We know that the basics work, right? Smiling, dialing, tonality, affirming, repeat and affirm to them that you're listening to them. Listen, know the scripts and dialogues, know the objections that they're going to say, understand what to say, how to say it, and know that it doesn't matter how many homes you sold when you're starting out. You know, as long as you know more than they do,
you're the expert.
You're the expert.
And that's what I say to my agents all the time. And listen, what you're thinking about when you meet with a client, whatever you're thinking about is you're going to actually, you know, I really do believe in affirmations and energy. Like you actually put that into existence. So if you start going, if you're on your way to an appointment, you're like, I hope they don't ask me how many houses I sold. I hope they don't ask me how long I've been in the business. Like, then they'll ask you. But if you're telling yourself, I am the expert, as long as I know more than them and I know where to find the answer, I am the expert and they will trust me. Your confidence comes out and they don't ask you those questions. No one ever says to me, like, how many years have you been in the business? Or, I mean, now I would happily tell them how many houses I've sold. But even back then, they didn't know. I showed up with all kinds of confidence. So confidence really does work. So if you're confident and you're curious about them and you make it about them, it's not ever about us. It's about them. Why are they buying or selling? Why are they making this big decision? It's not your decision. It's not about your commission check. And it's not about, they don't really care how many houses you've sold. They want to know, can you help them solve their problem? That's exactly it. When that's your mindset, then you don't have to worry about those things.
Can we solve the problem? So solving their problem is getting them sold if they're a FSBO or they are an expired. And I always say sometimes it's better to be the second or third broker in, because at that point, people usually are ready to hear what you have to say.
A lot of times they are. So being the second or third in helps in that way. And with FSBOs, a lot of times you are the first agent that they hired. So really it's just being curious and interested in them, but also being knowledgeable. Like spend a little time preparing yourself, know their market. The worst thing that can happen to you on a list, well, it's not the worst thing. It's happened to me a lot of times. Staying confident and calm really helps. But one of the worst things that can happen is when they're like, well, the guy across the street just sold for this price. And you're like, I didn't even know because I didn't do my homework. I didn't prepare, right? Like now they're telling you about the market. Maria, you've probably been in that situation too, where somehow we missed something and now they're like schooling us. I'm like, oh shoot, I got to do better.
100%.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But the confidence and preparation and education, like this is a full-time job though. This is not a part-time job.
Well, Expires are how I started in the industry when I figured out that there's listings out there. I'm like, how do I get those listings?
Right.
So expires, first in, last out, turn the lights on, put the coffee on. Well, I didn't have to put the coffee on. The admin were doing that, but I got my own coffee from across the street. But yeah, being on the phone, didn't even have, I tell the story, didn't not have a CRM. I had a notepad, papers everywhere, numbers written on papers. You would drive by and see a FISBO, write it down, call. I
Yeah.
definitely loved expired so more than for sale by owner, personally.
I
Because,
think I still do.
yeah, there's a great opportunity out there. This is a way to get business and to build your business and your name and your brand without spending very much money, you know?
Mhm.
And there's so much opportunity in the real estate industry. So, Mary Murphy, thank you so much for sharing today with us your nuggets about FISBOs and expires and all the things that you do, and letting and being a genuine and honest person. And I think that is really transcends. It comes across. You can feel that energy that you give, and so it makes sense why your clients love you so much.
Oh, thanks, Maria. This was fun. So I'm glad we got to do it.
Absolutely. It was great talking with you. Thanks so much for being on Be the Solution podcast. Until next time.
Thank you.